order. And do we have Councilmember Hubler online, or? No, I thought she said she was going to come. So it looks like it will be myself filling in for Councilmember Baldwin as chair, and we have Councilmember Davis here. So with that, we will call the meeting to order, and approval. I did look over the minutes, and I think I just sent in the change of the time, that it was 3:45 instead of 3:30. So that was the only thing that I saw on the minutes. And so now with that, we can, did you have any changes on any of the minutes, Councilmember Davis? Okay. So we'll go to the department reports and presentations. We have East Pierce.
Chair Fullerton.
Yes.
I think Councilmember Hubler has joined us online.
Great.
Debbie will need to promote her to a presenter to allow her to have microphone and camera access.
Got it. So we will change the roll call to Councilmember Fullerton as chair today. Councilmember Davis is here, and Councilmember Hubler is now present. And then we can go ahead. Minutes have been approved. And we'll go to department reports and presentations, starting with East Pierce Fire and Rescue Monthly Report by John Parkinson, Chief.
All right, my stats begin on page 5 of your packet. Just going through a couple of items. Page 6 of the stats just shows our breakout across the entire district of incidents by type as usual. Medical ends up being the largest slice of pie, and that's coming in right now at 72.74%. The next set of slides or the next slide on page 7 just shows call volume by service area. And so service area, where it says Bonney Lake all the way to the left, just covers the service area of the city of Bonney Lake, but also extends outside of the city. It's all of the response area of the station here in town. And that just shows, at least for right now, year over year, we're seeing about the same call volume as we did last year. Next set of slides on page 8 just breaks out by individual units. Of note on that slide, you'll see that kind of from left to right, you've got E111, so engine 111 to M111, which is medic 111. And then you'll see that there's M1119. So as of July 1st, we started staffing a second medic unit 24 hours a day out of the Bonney Lake station. So, what we were trying to combat there was really the measure that we use to say how busy a unit is. And when units start to get too busy, we refer to that in the industry as unit hour utilization, or how much time a unit is spending assigned to incidents. So in the case of the medic unit out of Bonney Lake, it was our busiest unit by adding a second unit. It was meant to cut their call volume in half. What we realized what actually happened was they were missing a substantial amount of calls because they were out of service. So they're still splitting their call volume in half, but they both became pretty busy units in and of themselves. So good service level improvement for Bonney Lake. The odds of having a medic unit available in town now is substantially higher than it used to be. Going to the next set of slides, it just goes through response metrics to date as far as travel time, or how long it takes us to drive to incidents year over year, taking comparisons of 90th percentile and at the 50th percentile or average. And the bottom table on that page is just looking at reliability. So reliability being the percentage of time that you can expect to get your closest fire station responding to your emergency. So our standard is that we want to see our stations at least 80% reliable. You'll see in the data set there that it would say Bonney Lake right now is coming right in at 79%. I would expect to see that improve with that additional medic unit. Again, the likelihood that you're going to have between the engine company and the two medic units, have one of those units available in the city of Bonney Lake when a 911 calls occurs is going to go up substantially compared to what we've seen in the first half of the year. The next table on page 10 just goes through actual Bonney Lake stats, so calls by type, specific to city limits. And in there, it's going to be pretty much the same as what we see throughout the district. Medical being our largest amount of calls, slightly lower just by a couple percent than what we see across the district, but right around 70%. Typically, we'll end the year around 75% of our incidents will be medical in nature. This type of year, or this time of year, just because of weather, we typically will see an uptick in brush fires or other kind of heat related responses. So it tends to skew stats a little bit over the summer. And then the last page 11 just goes over where we predict that we'll end the year as far as call volume goes, which would be about a 4.23% increase over last year, but we'll see how the year actually wraps up as we get closer. Just as far as other good to know items, now that we've actually done our final reporting on fireworks, we're required by the state to do to report out on fireworks incidents. For that to actually make its way into our reporting, we either have to have a strong suspicion that fireworks were related, or actually be able to say that there were fireworks involved in an incident. So we typically see about triple call volume on the 4th of July across the entire district. However, that doesn't, we're often unable to say that that we can point to fireworks as the cause of all that, even though it seems to make sense that it would. But within the city of Bonney Lake, we had a total of 7 that were documented for the state, 7 incidents that were fireworks related, 2 of those being medical and 5 of those being fires. And so those could have been either brush fires or reported house fires. At the end of the day, all of the fire related responses ended up being minimal. They didn't result in any substantial loss. The 2 medical responses, one I believe was a child who burnt her hand on a sparkler, and the other one had at least a stat or the report that I read was a firecracker that they held on to. And now we're missing a couple fingers because of that. So seems to happen each year. So, but in the scheme of things, kind of as I reported previously, 4th of July was actually, while it was still busy for us across the district, we had no serious fires or serious medical issues. And then this last item, Councilmember Baldwin had asked me at our last meeting just some information on opioid responses. And so I had our community resource paramedic. If anybody else wants one, and just kind of breaking down what this is showing. So the top row of the 3 different tables there is showing 2023 stats. Bottom one is showing 2024. You'll notice that the bottom right one says 2023 calls by month. That should be 2024. It's just labeled wrong. But we don't in our medical reporting data set, we don't have the ability necessarily to break out the city of Bonney Lake. So what she did was at least be able to break out by 98391. Obviously, that extends beyond city limits. But if you kind of look at where we were last year versus where we are year to date, 98391 or 98391 last year, 66 total opioid responses year to date through June. We were at 17. If that trend would hold up, that would suggest that we're seeing about half as much. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. We'll start to see that towards the end of the year, and I don't know. I haven't asked Mark if that's actually something that PD has seen similarly with opioid responses or not. But yeah, I don't know. And then the next table on there shows disposition as far as what we typically see. And are we see, I think her in particular kind of the question was, are we seeing more or less responses to opioid related incidents and any more deaths or anything? And in total, it would say that we had 3 last year and that we've seen 3 this year. And then the last one, just looking at opioid responses by month, and kind of where we're trending year to date. So that at least was just some information she was after, and I can follow up with her next month. But with that, kind of the caveat is it's not a perfect data set because we are limited to sometimes how people code an incident. In other words, if it comes in as a cardiac arrest, whether it was opioid related or not, it may get recorded in our system as a cardiac arrest. In the narrative section where the person's typing some notes, that's where they're going to put additional detail potentially about opioids, but it may be missing from this data set. So the data is never going to be perfect on our end because of that, because we are subject to just kind of how humans determine how they're going to input some data. So
I have a question.
Yes.
On the July 4th
Mhm.
incidents, I don't see that where the 7 are at.
so that's just
Is it-
that.
Or that's just like kind of
Yes.
on the side
Yes.
information? Okay. So there was only, so 2 were medical and then 5
Fire
were fire.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. 2 medical, 5 fire related.
And nothing too serious as far as the fires.
Yeah, across the district overall, while it was a busy 4th of July, no significant property loss or damage. And that is all that I have. Oops, I'm sorry.
All right, so next we have Bonney Lake Police Department monthly report, Chief Mark Berry.
Thank you. First, I'll kind of go over the blotter and some of our crime stats, and then I'll be able to jump in later on and partner with Jason when we talk about the Allen York Park updates. So a couple things you saw on the blotter that I thought, oh, I'd really want to know about these if I didn't know the behind the story. First, what happened with pursuits? So in June, I think it was June 6th, we're able to start pursuing again. And we saw throughout the county an initial in those first 2 weeks, high level pursuits. Certainly abnormal when we went from 0, but the common theme was after we arrested people, they said, I didn't think you could chase us. So there was this very clear message back to us of, well, we're committing crimes and running from you because you can't chase us.
Right.
Since time, that's really declined to where they're not very common. We did have one incident start off at Lowe's, the subject that was wanted that took off in a pursuit, flipped another car. Fortunately, that person wasn't injured, rolled over, caught on fire. We wound up arresting the 2 people involved with that, the driver for DUI, and then also the suspect that was the original wanted person. Our officers are doing a really good job actually on still terminating pursuits. We are still getting people that will flee from us. And one of the things we've really pushed with our officers is they have to outweigh the danger that this pursuit creates to the public versus the necessity to catch this person. So a shooting suspect, right, we're going to pursue longer. A good example is we had a reckless vehicle. We went to pull it over. They're driving fast, that they're going to oncoming lanes of traffic. That's dangerous. Then they headed towards Allen York Park on a busy afternoon. So officers terminated. And so I'm really happy to see that our officers are making good decisions on, hey, we want to catch suspects, but at the same time, we're not going to chase them through our busy parks over a traffic violation. There was some concern over that. You look, a lot of our officers were hired during the pandemic and during the no pursuit phase. They're inexperienced in pursuits, and we're very cognizant of that. So we're doing a lot of training. I'm happy to report that we're seeing good decisions from our officers. They are terminating themselves from a lot of pursuits. We're not having to wind up being the Tacoma News Tribune and explain why we were doing this. The pedestrian collision at Allen York Park is frankly a person got out of a truck to go check a trailer. His friend didn't know he got out of the truck, pulled the trailer forward, ran over his friend.
Oh.
So it's not a thing of like a child running across. We still have to respond to and investigate it. But it was just kind of a silly miscommunication between the people in the truck.
Was he injured?
He was a bit injured, yeah.
Oh, but he didn't die.
He did not die.
I think.
No. Matter of fact, they, I believe, drove him to the hospital in a different vehicle. So there's a shooting at Costco, and certainly that's scary. it's still under investigation. We believe this is probably self-inflicted, not from themselves, but from one of their friends. The trajectory of the bullet and where it passed and the stories just don't make sense. And we have some video evidence coming in from Costco. You would think that if you got shot on a different street, you come in at a pretty high speed, stop and call 911, and that's not what happened at all. So we're still investigating that, but I will say that we are not looking for any suspects at this point in time. Those were really the main ones. As I looked through the blotter, I thought you might have questions about. So let's go into our NIBR statistics. The really great news, if you look year to date, we're down in almost every category, which is fantastic news. Almost every category of crime, we're down. That's a trend we've been seeing. It's a trend we obviously want to keep up with. We do still see that juvenile arrests. I talk about all the time. Juvenile arrests are still on the rise compared to last year. That's being seen throughout the region. And we really see that in stolen cars, where we're having people that we arrest, we get them out of a stolen car, and we can't book them into Raymond Hall. We're having really serious problems with Raymond Hall and their refusal to take anyone that's not a violent juvenile. Some of those issues that we're running into is we have a juvenile who assaults their parent in a domestic violence incident. They won't keep them at Raymond Hall, and we have to release them to the parent. And we can all see where that causes a really unsafe condition for everyone. So we're working with legislators and the Pierce County Police Chiefs Association to really try and push some pressure on Raymond Hall. I think I've discussed it before. That is run by Superior Court. That is not run by the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, which a lot of people think. So we're continuing to work on that. You'll see that our calls for service are about the same level, fairly close as they were in 2023, but our calls with reports are down by quite a bit. Again, so that means we're responding to a lot of things that are gone on arrival, suspicious people, but haven't actually created enough of an incident to write a report. So that is also a good trend. Flock, I know I keep talking about flock safety, but I did want to give some updates. We do not have flock safety yet. Obviously, as we know, we're considering it. We have now solved about 5 different crimes where I've identified suspects using other people's flock systems. So our Lowe's here and Lowe's throughout the region have installed flock safety systems, and they share that data with us. So we're able to identify a subject from a hit and run, where the hit and run occurred on a city street, but then they fled through the Lowe's parking lot. So we're able to get that video evidence and identify the car. It's also helping with retail theft. We're already seeing that Lowe's is able to track a shoplifter, see what car they get in. They're able to zoom in, give us the license plate, the description. We're able to do follow-up and identify the suspects. Then we had another one where one of our suspect vehicles went through another city that we knew had flock. So we asked them to search their system based off our identifiers, and they're able to give us a license plate, and we're able to identify a suspect. So even though we don't have that system, we are actually partnering with some of our private retailers and other cities and getting good information from that system. That's it for me.
I think I sent you an email.
You
on
did.
Exactly that thing today. Have we discussed flock systems with any of the other retailers in town?
Yeah, and I did respond. You probably
Yeah,
haven't
I
seen
haven't
it yet.
seen it yet.
So initially I thought Walmart was getting it. They are not. They're kind of addressing it, but Flock is currently in negotiations with Home Depot as well.
Okay.
So it's not something where we can mandate, but as other companies, I think, are seeing what's going on with Lowe's. Probably saw in the news, there's an HOA in Federal Way that purchased it and doing their own subscription to deter crime. And anytime a private company or an HOA gets the Flock system, they have the ability, they're not required to, but they have the ability to share that data with us. And so far, most people want to do it for obvious reasons. Lowe's has been fantastic.
Yeah, like I said, I had that discussion with the director over there in Yakima, because I think they were the first city
They were the first city.
to have block, and they have nothing but great things
I
to say.
think Yakima has over 200 cameras now.
Yeah, they have solved a lot of
Murders, shootings, kidnappings. Yeah. Any other questions?
Can we put in the contract that, that the flock system would only be used for solving crimes and not for ticketing or
So,
anything like that, or any other thing that could, you know,
we get to decide that through our department policy. So Flock is just the user and they provide the information. That's up to us as the police department to govern how we're going to use that.
mhm,
So for example, it doesn't even work for traffic violations because it doesn't show data of them running red lights. It's not set up to do that kind of thing.
okay,
So we couldn't use it for traffic, but it's only designed for criminal.
okay.
We're looking at felonies, people crimes,
Mhm,
and then I'm gonna have an exigency of other crimes approved by the police chief.
mhm.
Because I don't want to get us into a box where we have something that was exigent, we didn't forecast out for that, and now we're violating policy using it. But
Mhm,
our system, the policy that we're designing right now, I'm reading through best practices,
mhm.
Yakima and some other cities, and we get to design it, and that will be a follow-up that I bring to council. Here
Okay.
is the policy.
Okay, yeah, the concern, you know, the concern.
100%.
So, just want to make sure that in the future, we're not going to have the same council. We're gone every 4 years, or
Right.
we're being reelected or not being reelected, right? So, you know, in the future, our flock system still being maintained for what it was originally set forth to do and isn't going to change and violate people's rights or whatever. So in the future with a different council.
I have a quick question. I noticed obviously you said the calls are similar, the number of calls year to date, but the report taking we have like about 150 less reports.
Correct.
Is there written policy for when officers are making reports, or is it more of a discretion thing where officers are kind of deciding, am I going to need a report for this? Yes or no, sort of a deal?
There are some written policies, certainly domestic violence, for example, those are mandatory. If there's been property crime, if property's been taken, property's been received, there are some indicators where the discretion is gone. But really see a lot of the numbers where you have things like a suspicious person.
Right.
And so those calls are coming along at about the same quantity,
Right.
but as far as crimes, it's also another good indicator
Yeah.
of crime reduction.
And we have Councilmember Hubler has a question.
Thank you, Chief, for all of the data. I loved seeing all your questions, your answers to all the questions, but off of the flock system onto, did you get a chance to find out any information about the businesses, the large businesses, and whether they are, how they're handling theft and all of that we had talked about last month?
Yeah, I have not gotten to all of them. Certainly Target, Lowe's, Home Depot, and Safeway are very good with coordinating with us about thefts and providing their asset protection officers. I need to follow up on Fred Meyer. I don't have Fred Meyer or Kohl's or some of the other ones, but I can say that Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, and Safeway are very responsive to us.
Okay. And what does it mean when you say they're responsive?
Yeah, great question. So first they call, right? They report it. And then they work with us to provide evidence if they have it. So if employee Smith saw the person get into a white truck, they let us talk to employee Smith, take him off of whatever job there is so we can get that witness statement that ties them to the suspect vehicle. They're providing us with video evidence or photographic evidence, and they're providing us with asset protection people in court to come and testify on their behalf.
Okay, awesome. I love hearing that. That was all I had.
I will say, and Josh may be speaking to this, the issue we are having mostly with retail theft is while the felony level is $750, makes it, if you steal an item of $750 or greater, it makes it a felony theft. The Pierce County Superior Court won't charge a theft over $2,000. So we're going to start having a lot of those come back to Bonney Lake Court because we're identifying a lot of people for stealing things that are the felony level, but not meeting Pierce County Superior Court's charging matrix. So we're going to be bringing those back.
Wow.
That's just basic sheer numbers, the number of cases that are coming into Superior Court they don't have the staff to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Is it the state law that is 750?
Right,
Is that what you
RCW
said?
is $750 for,
CW is 750, but they're not prosecuting anything under 2,000?
correct, in Superior.
Well, that makes it kind of hard for us, right?
Well, actually, might make it really nice because we have a good prosecutor team and we can bring it to our course and still get it prosecuted at the misdemeanor level versus
Okay.
just thrown out altogether.
Right, okay, good to know. So it wouldn't be a gross misdemeanor if it was 750?
It would come down to being a gross misdemeanor, I'm assuming if we charged it.
So any theft is at least a gross misdemeanor. You can steal $1 as long as it has value. It is a gross misdemeanor. And then up to after 750 is when it becomes felony level. So it could be charged as a felony. And as Chief was saying, Pierce County only has so many resources to devote to all these thefts. And because prices have gone up, so you can steal probably 10 packs of Pokemon cards and you end up over in felony land. And instead of felony land being able to handle that, they send it back to the cities where they have the cities or the district courts. And so in a lot of our cases, one of the issues has been that we'll send it over to the superior courts first as a felony. They'll obviously not get booked, but if there's an accompanying felony that would allow booking, then they would be in jail. But then if, let's say, felony is not able to maintain the charges, they will send it back to us. They might email us and say, hey, we have this charge for you with somebody who's in custody that we're not going to take. They may email us. They probably won't. And then in a couple of weeks, we will find out that they were supposed to be charged, that they were booked, and then we will finally charge it. But then they'll be out of custody and they'll be on warrant status for a couple of years, and then we'll finally get the case back. And there's a lot of issues that come with that. So I think instead, what Chief is saying is that there's somewhat of a policy where instead of charging it in Pierce County Superior Court in the first place, if it's below $2,000 but over 750, they're just going to send it straight to us, and that way we can still actually book them if it's going to meet our jail's restrictions.
Right.
So there's no gap
Okay.
in between the two.
Good. Excellent.
That's awesome.
Okay, any more questions for the chief? All right, then we are going to move on to item number 3 is Allen York Park Operational Plan Monthly Report. Jason Sullivan, Interim Public Service Director.
Hello and good evening or afternoon. Yes, we want to come back and brief the Public Safety Committee on the Allen York Plan implementation of it. We've had a lot of success at implementing the operational plan that we briefed the Public Safety Committee on earlier this year. There are some things that we wanted to do that we weren't able to do. And we're looking forward to be able to implement those next year. Some of the things that we're seeing from evidence, and I'll let Chief talk here in a few minutes on the statistics, but just some observational data that we're seeing from our parks crews is that we are seeing more families in the park this year, families with small children, which was one of our objectives, is to kind of take the park back for families. The second is we are seeing our crews always see kind of the aftermath of things. And so we're seeing a lot less liquor bottles and beer cans and whiskey bottles throughout the park than we did last year, and a lot less trash. So those things are working. Some changes we've made to the paid parking administratively based on conversations we've had with the city council is we now have implemented the paid parking is free prior to 10 a.m. The crews got those signs Friday morning, had them all installed before Friday afternoon was over last week. So now, and Chuck has already updated the park mobile system to allow for no paid parking prior to 10 a.m., which was a request of the city council and the community. We have talked with the mayor's office about how to deal with our large field rentals. So, when we're defining as large field rentals as anything over 500,000, or sorry, $5,000 within the rental window. And we have two I-9 Sports and MRAC, Mount Rainier Football Club. We have worked a policy through the mayor's office that if your field rental was over $5,000, your parking is then included within that field rental. And we are working with two options right now for when they start up in late August, early September, of how to do that. Either it will be placards in their car that they distribute to their members for Field 5, and we worked with the police department. That's one option. The other option is we're working with Chuck to be able to basically give them a pass through Park Mobile. It's a separate system that we have to get a contract for that Chuck's working on right now. And if that contract is approved, we'll just do it through the Park Mobile system. I did let MRAC know that I hope that their people read the whole email, because the way it works is we have to set a fee and then we email them a code as when we tell them to register that takes it to zero. So if they don't read the whole email, you might get some people complaining that we're still charging them for parking. But that's just the way the system is set up to operate. But we will be emailing them. Here's the link to get your pass, and here's the code to make it zero, to get that for the field usage. And then we'll be coming back this fall to address any other changes and talk about other past programs that the council has put on our radar. Chief, I know you guys have been gathering some statistics, so I'll turn it over to Chief to talk about the kind of the calls for service statistics that they're seeing from on the police side.
Great, thank you. So I pulled up the statistics looking at Allen York Park for calls for service to date. So it's an accurate comparison from 2023 and 2022. And the first one I pulled up 2024, I was shocked how many more calls we had. And it didn't make any sense to what we're actually seeing out there. And then when I started going through the data, I found with this huge number of security checks, which is officers out there doing patrols in the middle of the night or other times. And that was really skewing the data. Those were proactive patrols, but they show us a call for service. So instead I went through and I really drilled down on crimes, type of things we see out there. The one that was really increased is animal-related crimes. We have had animal-related incidents, excuse me. We've had 12 this year compared to 1 last year. Frequently that is dogs off leash, and someone calls to report that. It's not dog bites, it's not vicious dogs, it's dogs running around. That is frequently because you have people with their dogs out there, they take them off leash and people are reporting them. So certainly not a violent crime. Parking problems are increased this year compared to last year, and that makes sense because we have officers doing parking specific patrols. And so that is skewing our numbers. We are impounding quite a few vehicles. The one thing that I'll say I'm getting is 0 complaints from boaters who have bought a boat permit and can't get their boats in and out of the trailer parking because there's cars there. We're also getting very few complaints from neighbors in the neighborhoods around the park, because we're enforcing the impounds and parking tickets out there as well. How about crimes though? Disorderly, if you think about people that are drunk, obnoxious, fighting, in 2023, we had 12, we've had 3 this year. So that's cut by 75%. MIPs, which is minors in possession of alcohol in the park and within that beachhead, we have had 0 this year in both those categories. And I think a lot of that is we have officers now going through, they're patrolling. Also, kudos to Jason and his team. They came out, they worked really hard with us on this mix of how do we make the park look beautiful and also take away the hiding spots where people might go and do nefarious things like drink or do drugs or different things. And so we worked really hard on removing some trees and bushes in certain areas, worked on raising the levels of branching and things like that. And I'll say that is paying off. Having the presence and having the visibility while still having a beautiful park. Narcotics, we've had 1 narcotics related incident this year, marijuana, versus 3 last year. And juvenile problems where you have maybe a group of juveniles, it's a general classification, frequently maybe intimidating people or yelling or swearing or just causing a commotion. We've reduced that by over half this year compared to last year. So the crime statistics, very clear that this is working. I know there's some people unhappy about the paid parking, but I think there are a lot of families who are very happy because they can use the park for what it was intended to. You open up the newspaper every day and you see shootings at this park, teenager shot here, teenager shot there. Very happy to say we've had one fight all year at the park, and that's a great reduction in numbers. So I think the message is out there. This is family friendly. You're not going to get away with the crimes. I'm trying to remember my traffic numbers are down, which is actually really good, even though we have officers out there who can specifically do traffic. The amount of traffic stops is about half of last year because we don't have the speeding and the people burning out tires and doing traffic related crimes out there. So again, those are all great for public safety. Last thing I'm gonna give you, Jason talked about, we have the new signs out there that paid parking is after 10 a.m. I do want to let you know, we heard council's concerns early on, and while we're working on getting new signage, please just use our discretion, and we weren't issuing any tickets before 10 a.m. anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jason?
And so, yep, so just to close on that, the plan is, and it's still been going on, is since February, we've had an Allen York Parks operational team meeting, and it occurs every Thursday afternoon prior to the parks. It's made up of myself, my operational staff for parks, representatives from police department, David Wells, Chuck is our risk manager, Leslie Harris, our PIO, just to go over what happened the week before, any changes we need to make, and monitor that. That team will continue to work into the fall. And then in the spring, we will bring back to the Public Safety Committee a new operational plan for next year that incorporates lessons learned from this year, things that we could improve, where we can make adjustments. We don't think this is a kind of a one and done. This was just kind of the first initial year that we've done the operational plan. But as long as Chief and I are here, the plan is to keep the operational plan in effect every year, but updating it for each new season based on what we're hearing, based on what we're learning, and based on the changes in the park. We might be building a boat trailer parking lot next year. That's going to change operationally how we do things. So every year we're going to have to update this operation plan and present it back to the Public Safety Committee in order to keep it fresh so we don't return to the problems of the past. And with that, Chair Fullerton, we can answer any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for all the work you're doing, and I appreciate hearing about the team meeting. And that's weekly, you said?
Yes, and it has been since early February.
Great. Okay, good to know. Any questions?
No questions. Just want to say thank you for the plan being put in action. I think all residents do see the difference in that park this year. I live fairly close to that park. I pass it almost every day. The difference is very noticeable. So very appreciative.
I echo that, because just driving past there, it is so much calmer, so much nicer to be able to drive through there and just see people playing and not worry about the kids that we didn't want there. So this plan that you guys put together has worked, and I'm very grateful. Very grateful. You guys did a great job on this.
Thank you. It was definitely a team effort. A lot of people came together to make it work.
You guys did it.
Did you utilize, I know last year there was probably 3 times when Pierce County had to come out to do assistance. We didn't have to use Pierce County very often this year at
We
all,
have
did
not
we?
had to call out for outside agency assist or even backup from within Bonney Lake, knock on wood, once this year.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's great. Is this real wood?
Just wanted to knock on something.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Here, I got some here.
Okay, there. All right. Any more questions? Statements? Okay. Oh, yeah.
I do want to have one follow-up. We are still pursuing and working with the police department on the vandalism that occurred on Field 5. For reasons I'm not going to get into all the details, but we are still working that out. The people who've done the work have been who did the vandalism have been identified. The police are handling that side, and we are working with the turf manufacturer to get the turf repaired behind Field 5. So I just want to let you know that work is underway, and it should be repaired and ready to go for baseball season.
And that identification was made from the newly powered cameras at the park. So,
That's great. Oh, the power that got added.
The
It's already
power
paid
that
for itself.
the power that CDC added and let us spend a little bit more money. The power and the cameras went live the day before it happened.
Wow. That's awesome. We did good, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now we have item number 4, Prosecutor's Office Monthly Report, Joshua Candia.
Yep. that's-
Okay, Prosecutor.
So, I haven't done one of these before. Dina told me my job is essentially to try to impress on everybody how much work goes into the prosecutor's office. As far as my position in the prosecutor's office, I usually just sit in court and I'm the mouthpiece. And normally it's our staff that does a lot of these, a lot of the reports and everything. So anyways, if you look at the first page, you'll see there was a total of 547 hearings that we had in the month of July. Each hearing can be something as small as a contested infraction that they end up saying, "Oh yeah, I did it," and then they make their payments. It can go as long as a motion hearing, and we had 5 motion hearings. Those can also include victims coming in, witnesses, having to call witnesses, and then we had 1 trial. And normally we don't have the trials. We've gotten pretty good at and they, most people are pretty afraid to go to trial just because they don't want to end up in a situation where they're sentencing, where they're not able to take responsibility for their crime. And so most of the time we don't have trial, but we did have 1 in July. So if you scroll to the next slide or the next page, my first thing I noticed was that from July 2023 to July 2024, we had the exact same number of cases in both months. So that was kind of strange to me, or at least that's the exact same number of hearings. So as far as obviously crime is likely down, but we've still have plenty of hearings or at least similar to last year. Normally in the summer months, people actually do show up for court. So we end up with more people in the summer months, which would make sense for why, May, June is when the sun started coming out, and then July, and then that's when people really started to come out to court. If you scroll to the next page, it's the body worn camera footage hours. I think this is not the hours the police record, because there's hours and hours and hours on end. This is more just the hours that are reviewed. This doesn't take into account how many times we view these things, how many different people view it. If all 4 of us are in an office viewing the camera, we really only count that as 1 hour. So especially with the trial coming up, we had to use basically we had to edit the film because a lot of the things that were in the footage were not admissible. So we had to cut it out and then have just certain segments of it. So even though it was a low amount on this page, I think that we probably did a lot more than that, just in trying to make sure we could get the right evidence at trial. If you go to the next page, these are discovery packets. I'm sure Dina has explained this, but this has all kinds, every single piece of information that we have to get that to defense, and we call that a discovery packet. And those are all admin staff. That's all Kristen Bisnaugh, Carol Paul. They put together every single piece of evidence or every single thing that we have for the case into one nice organized packet. And then it's usually electronically sent to the defense attorney. If it's not electronically sent to the defense attorney, they have to put it in mail. And then if it's electronic evidence, we basically have to say, come on over to the office and you can watch it on our computers, but we can't send you the body cam footage that way. And so it looks like there was 69 packets that were sent. I would say it's kind of on the lower end, but generally that is something that we that most of the time takes a lot of our admin staff time. So updates for July 2024. So prosecutor's office supported various teams in the city with legal advice. So there was 14 days in court, 19 body worn camera videos with a total staff time of 11 hours, and provided 69 discovery packets. So I guess that would be exactly what we just talked about. I think we just put an extra page. We had our trial, sort of it was a 1-day trial. It wasn't a huge trial, but I would say that the only reason that we won is because our officers are very, very trustworthy, and yeah, I think their credibility was the only reason that we won. One of the officers, Sergeant Burnham, was able to say on record that he has never been wrong about a suspect identification, and that was pretty awesome. And I think Sergeant Burnham and Officer Evie definitely sold the case for us. So that was definitely helpful. And then obviously Judge Daniels, when they go to trial, defendants do not, normally we give the whole point of an offer is that we're saying we're going to give you the ability to rehabilitate yourself and become a productive member of society, as opposed to saying you have to go to jail. And then that way we'll give you a better deal. And then, you take responsibility for what happened. And in cases where they say, no, it wasn't me, I'm not taking responsibility, I don't care, going to trial. Normally in those cases, then we make an argument for a much more significant sentence. And the judge did impose 200 days in this case. And he still has to do drug and alcohol evaluation, comply with all the treatment. And if he doesn't, judge is likely to impose the remaining 164 days. Community court update. So we do have the 13 community court participants. We are planning a graduation on the 26th. I think Miss Lewis is here, so she's going to be able to talk a lot more about community court. But I mean, we do basically every single person who can go to community court, we refer them to community court. And so far, I have noticed that we have had more successes than failures, at least since Miss Lewis has gotten here. So that is a big turnaround from what I had expected, but that would be our community court update. Does anybody have any questions?
So the graduation is Monday, August 26th at 2:30. If anybody wants to attend. Okay. Seeing no discussion, we are going to go to discussion action items. That is item number 1 is AB 24-88, ordinance 2488. Ordinance amending Bonney Lake Municipal Code, Chapter 9.10, and that will be Joshua Candia, prosecutor.
Well, hello again. So the main concern that we had here, it has a lot to do with the difference between felony and misdemeanor and what our court is able to prosecute. And so again, a lot of the times for the possessing a stolen vehicle or even vehicle prowling, say first degree, if there's something that Pierce County is not able to robustly prosecute because they don't have the resources to do so, then it would get sent down to us. Problem being, we do have possession of stolen property, but then that would require them to have an admission, or there has to be some sort of circumstantial evidence to show that they knew that it was stolen. If, however, and that we don't have those things, but we know that it's somebody else's vehicle and they don't have permission to be in it. So they know they don't have permission to be in it, and they know that it's somebody else's vehicle. We can't charge taking a vehicle without permission because that's a felony. We are able to, or at least cities are able to pass an ordinance where it would make it a gross misdemeanor for you to be in somebody's vehicle without permission. And that would sort of eliminate the gap between felony and misdemeanor. So obviously vehicle theft crimes are up, or they've continued to rise. I think they might be going down currently just because the pursuit laws that we're allowed to pursue now. But I know that, other cities have passed this ordinance or a similar ordinance to this so that they are able to take advantage of the courts at a misdemeanor level, as opposed to just sending it straight to the counties and the Superior Court. So in this case, it would allow us to prosecute those cases where they were in a vehicle without permission. I don't know if you have read through, but it would make it a gross misdemeanor. That would be essentially the same as a theft or a vehicle prowl in the second degree. Those are maximum penalties of 364 days in jail and or a $5,000 fine. And I mean, we took this code, we took all other codes that we could find that similar. I don't know that there were many changes. We just wanted to make sure that all of the basically as much of this crime, as much of this gap that we could bridge with this, we wanted to make sure we captured it in the new ordinance. So obviously they'd be guilty if they knowingly enter or remain unlawfully in a vehicle that belongs to another. And then they define the words enter. That's pretty kind of a simple one. And then remaining unlawfully is when they're, not licensed, invited, or otherwise privileged to enter or remain. So similar to criminal trespass first or second, instead of either of those, this would be for a vehicle.
So would this be for specifically like a stolen vehicle or?
It doesn't
um,
need to be a stolen vehicle. It would
Okay.
be, so another thing would be, let's say.
So me and my boyfriend get into a fight and it's not my car and I now no longer, he tries to kick me out. Not that I have a boyfriend, I'm just,
Sure, yes.
I have a husband. But he kicks me out and he says, "You're not welcome in here. You're trespassing. I'm breaking up with you. Get out." And I don't get out, knowing that I don't have permission to be in there. And now he calls the police and says she won't get out of my car. She doesn't have permission to be in here. I want her out. So is that now a misdemeanor? Because he picked me up and took me on a date and then tried to kick me out in the middle of the highway. I mean,
So in
Yeah.
that case, we'd actually respond to that as a domestic violence incident,
okay,
right? And then you're saying, hey, I don't want to get out of the car. It's the middle of the night. We'll give you a courtesy ride home.
okay,
Right? We'll solve the problem. It's not designed for domestic violence incidents.
okay.
Right. On top of that, there's also, if there was a worry about getting out of the car, like you might get hit by another car, you would have, there's plenty of affirmative defenses that there would be to this. So it's not designed for that. It's not something that would be, I don't think that that's something that will be charged.
Okay,
Can I make a comment
Yeah.
about this?
please.
While motor vehicle theft is on the decline, it's also on the decline from record highs.
Right.
So it is still, even with the decline, higher than we historically saw.
Mhm.
And the police department has reviewed this. We are in full support of it. And we really appreciate our prosecutor's office looking for another tool to give us that coverage in that gap that we're seeing.
And what are there, like documentation of other cities and how this has worked for them specifically, or?
I don't know that, all I can give you is personal information, or at least information that I've gotten personally from the prosecutors of other cities, where we basically borrowed the language for our ordinance that we're trying to have passed. Essentially, every prosecutor I've talked to that has used this, they say they've more been able to, they are able to prosecute those who are usually declined from Pierce County because they are in the passenger seat, although they knowingly entered a vehicle that they did not, that doesn't belong to them, especially stolen vehicles. And so they've basically shown that even though if Pierce County had unlimited resources, they could charge you with complicity for a felony, but they won't. And so what we're doing is, again, broadening the ordinance so that we can make sure that we capture those who are, let's say, you get into a vehicle and it's a stolen vehicle, and then you take a nap in the back seat, and that's when, they run the VIN on a vehicle and they say, hey, this is a stolen. And then you can get out and say, hey, I was just walking around and found a car, got in, take a nap. This is going to now be able to be a tool for the police department and for the prosecutor's office to then kind of capture that crime as well. And I know they don't necessarily have to be stolen cars. And that was the question you had before. A lot of the times, if you're in a parking lot and you leave your car unlocked, if you're going to do vehicle prowling, we have to, there are elements of that we have to prove. For this, the element we would have to prove is that it's not your vehicle. You were not invited to come into the vehicle, and now you've come into the vehicle. And we've had a number of cases where, especially in the neighborhoods, if we had any of the homelessness, which thanks to our CSOs, our homelessness issues are not as bad as other places, but where we do have the homeless issues, they will find vehicles, get into the vehicle without any intent to steal or having actually stolen or used or anything. They just want a place to be, especially during the colder months. And that would be another tool. And again, obviously, we're not trying to say, hey, we're trying to keep you from freezing to death because we want you to freeze to death as opposed to getting in somebody's car. But if they are charged with the crime, then our court is able to essentially light a fire under them to actually get the help that they would need. So it's just broad enough, I think, that it captures a lot of the gap between what our court can currently do and what Pierce County can't do because they don't have the resources.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that, because I think when I read it too, I did the sense that this was more for passengers and stolen vehicles to be prosecuted, which I think is a good thing, because I think normally when a car is being stolen, right, it's more than one individual involved. Correct, chief, when I'm saying that's not what I'm saying, person.
Yeah.
And so if the passengers now know that they're gonna be held to some accountability level, maybe they'll be less apt to steal that car or to get in that car with the person. So I think it does give us another tool to.
Good example is the joyriding. You
Yes.
see where
Yeah.
a group goes out, they steal a Kia, 4 people, like I broke into it, my friends get in it, they know I don't own this Kia, right? There's no ignition. It's clearly not my car. It's clearly been stolen, and they drive around all night doing whatever crimes they're gonna do. When we catch them, then let's get us the ability to hold 4 people accountable instead of the driver alone.
Yeah, a lot of times it's kind of like the wolves pack, you know, where you're in a pack and you can kind of encourage each other to, yeah, let's go ahead and try this, right? So where if it was just one person, they probably wouldn't have even considered it.
I think it's a great one. I like that you guys work with other cities to find ways to hopefully deter more of this theft that's been happening.
So do we want to go ahead and put this on a full council issue so that other council members can hear?
Yes, for me, I say
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Yes, okay. All right, so when can we do that? Which council meeting would we put that on full council? Would it
It would be
27th?
August 27th.
Okay. Oh, so I said May, August. It's a really long time.
I couldn't do the math. 14 days from
I
today.
knew it was August, but I couldn't get it out of my mouth. Okay, so August 27th, consent. No, sorry,
Full
full
council.
council, yes, okay. And Jason or Josh, who's gonna be presenting this? Are you gonna do a little presentation?
That'd be
Josh.
Josh.
Or
Yeah, it'll
Josh,
either be myself or Ms. Burke,
sorry.
yeah.
Joshua, all right, or Dina, okay. All right, so how much time do we have? Can we go until like 55 if we need to?
We
I
have
think we're
13 minutes to that.
okay,
Yes.
perfect. Okay, so we'll start stepping this up a little bit. Looks like we are on AB 24-89, resolution R 24-89, out of state travel for Regine Creel, emergency manager.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
This is actually a repeat from the same one that we had to bring forth last year. With the budget cycle, the funding was approved, but for some reason, the actual conference itself was left off of the out-of-state travel list. So basically what it is out-of-state travel, authorizing one person to go to Colorado Springs, Colorado for the International Association of Emergency Manager Conference that happens annually. That's a criteria for maintaining credentialing. So it's 7 days at the end of mid-November, excuse me. And it's already budgeted for, so there's no additional expense to anything.
Okay.
And so the request for this was exactly what we did last year, which was to send it to consent.
Okay. I don't have a problem sending this to consent because there is no additional budget needed, no additional expenditures or changes to the current balance or the budget. So,
Agreed, I think it should go to consent.
okay.
I'm fine with that.
Councilmember Hubler, okay. All right, so we can put that on a consent agenda. You're welcome. I know that that is actually important if we need to maintain our criteria for keeping the grant going, right? So get that taken care of. And then our next agenda item or discussion action item is AB 24-84. Resolution R 2484, memorandum of understanding with Concio, I can't pronounce that, Concio Counseling and Referral Services, Judge Joanne Daniels, and she is not here, so I'm believing we're going to talk to Carla Lewis.
Yes, thank you, Chair Fullerton. And it's Consejo Counseling and Referral Services.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. So we are entering in a memorandum of understanding for Consejo to provide therapeutic services, not only for community court purposes, but for Bonney Lake Municipal Court as well. They will be available for assessments, treatment, mental health assessments, also Recovery Navigator. They're offering that service to me as well on Fridays, and this is at no cost. So, I mean, it's an amazing opportunity.
Okay, so this isn't having to do with the other counseling where they were having issues. And
No,
so we were looking for somebody else to take over that.
That's correct. And so Consejo Counseling and Referral has agreed to take over until December at no cost. They want to ensure that they're going to have enough business to make it, you know, because they come in at 8:30 on Monday morning and they stay until court's over Monday afternoon. They come on Wednesdays when we have court as well. And then they offer peer services on Friday for community court purposes. So not only is it availing into me as a community court and to my participants, but to the court as a whole, which is wonderful. We didn't have that before. And
Great.
Even better, zero cost is really amazing. I mean, they're able to bill Medicaid for their services.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask. So if they're not billing us, who are they billing? So if they're billing Medicaid, that's perfect. Okay.
Yes, they are billing Medicaid. They just need to ensure they did a kind of a 6-month time period with me to ensure that they are going to have enough business. And I already know they get referrals on a daily basis for our court hearings. And it's amazing to have our therapist in court because there's no delay, whether that's finding an inpatient bed, detox, or even, you know, an assessment to get treatment done. They can do them right in our court. So having that has just made a world of difference.
And this one quick question, I think it said it's no cost to us, but we are allowing them to use our offices and facilities here to conduct their interviews and such.
Yeah, so what we're allowing right now is the kiosk downstairs by the court clerk's office where they were doing the DV. Right now it's being utilized by their mental health therapists to do one-on-ones and assessments on Mondays. Otherwise, they're in the lobby or they're in the courtroom. I do utilize the jury room on Fridays for peer group, but that's something they come in with me and do. So they're not taking extra space or anything like that. And we did get approval before allowing them to use the kiosk.
Okay, so any other questions?
No question. I just want to say I really love that you guys are doing this. And I think this is a really great opportunity for people to get help when they don't want to get help, but now they see that there's somebody out there that cares enough to help them. So my hat's off to you guys for what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And the prosecutor's office, you know, has said that without your help, we wouldn't have the graduations and the success that we're having. So yeah, it's just amazing. So council members, should we just go ahead and put this one on the consent? It's zero cost.
Yeah, I vote for consent.
Only reason I say no to consent is because I think it's something that people need to know, that like why it's there and that it's not being something that we are not funding it. It's not coming even from the court's grant. So that's my only hesitation with it. It's just making sure people know what it is and that it's there. I'm more of a make sure that everybody in the communities know what we're doing. I don't think people really go back and listen to this one, but I think they actually go back and listen to council meetings. So I think that's my only hesitation with consent agenda. It's just making sure that the community knows it's there, it's available, and that we are not funding it, that they are donating their time to us.
Um,
I'm okay with that. That's a good reason for put it on
to
hold.
give like, and then the court system, community court can get some credit. I'm sure the council will go ahead and approve it, but that way we can kind of get out to everybody what's actually happening. Okay, so we'll put that on full council for August 27th
26.
or 26th,
27.
27th.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, I do not see anything else on the agenda. We're at 4:50. Do we have any open committee discussion? Any items that people would like to discuss?
No.
Okay, it looks like we have public here, possible public comment.
I do.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Cookie William. I live at 6709 West Taft Highway East. I have 3 issues I'd like to discuss quickly. I have 5 copies of this here. And you can pass them around to whoever needs. There's 2 different copies here. I think it's wonderful that they put in the pay for parking. Okay. I live at the corner house, the first corner house, my property, the waterfront's on one side, I'm on the other, the big rambler that sits there. On the south side of the park, they put parking permit, only parking at 191st, 2nd and 3rd. What happens to us? First Street North, that's what happens. If you have a fire truck that needs to come up there, good luck. You're not gonna get them up there. Okay, they're parking on our property, they're parking in the street, they're everywhere. You name it, they're there. I have not seen one police officer come up and address it. I have talked to police officers about the issue, and they said they would pass the word. They're still doing it. I would like to see the same privilege that 191st, 2nd, and 3rd got for 67 Court that runs up the street, because it's really becoming, and I don't mind, trust me, I don't mind at all disciplining people for parking in the street, parking the wrong way, going the wrong way in the street. There is really not that much of an edge that they can park on at all. So it's a safety issue, number 1. Number 2, they shouldn't be parking there. And number 3, it makes it a real problem for me to get into my driveway and out of my driveway. And we even have people parking on our property right there, as you can see the white truck. And they also park down on our grass area there. I can't be there every day to monitor who's parking there. By the time they park, they hightail it to the park. Not your problem, but I will say, because of all of the activities at the park, which is wonderful. I love the activities at the park. This is one of the highest populated people, dogs, cats, deer, mamas, babies, walkway, 67. It is packed with people constantly, as early as 5 o'clock in the morning. We're gonna have a problem, okay? We've already had a head-on collision right in front of my house. This happened about 3.5 months ago, I believe. I don't know about you, but there has been way too many close calls. Okay, way too many close calls. I've seen it where somebody's hit a child and the bike and the child's underneath the car. Nobody wants to witness any of that stuff, but I personally have seen it. Not at 67. I was an operative. Okay, I don't want to see it. People drive up on the sidewalks. I guess one day they didn't realize people water their front yard. I'm out there watering. Ford Edge comes to the corner of my lot on the south side, drives the whole distance to the next driveway on the sidewalk. I've seen it. I have seen it all. on that road. And if you don't live here, you wouldn't know.
Mhm.
But if you live here and you drive down there and it is gridlock at starts about 3:30 because they get off of 410 and they come up there. Well, when you have all this activity going and then we have to go across the street to get our mail, we chose to live there. That's what we have to do. But you almost get killed just trying to cross the street. And I have asked police officers, I've lived there 43 years, so I've asked. Can you please sit on either my gravel side or can you please sit on the grass side? You're not gonna get the people at the park. And if you do, you'll get a few. But they get pissed because they have to go 20. Then they pick it up and they fly down the road. Literally fly down the road. I know what 25 miles an hour is. I know what 20 is. I know what 25 is. I've been driving a long time. I'm old. And what am I gonna do? I stick my hose out there. Try to slow them down. It does slow them down. I know it sounds a little nutty, but you know what? I'm tired of it. And I asked about starting a petition. I've asked numerous people in this building and the building over there to get a petition started to, here's my other subject, make it all 20 miles an hour. We have one stretch, 2 city blocks and an 8 that's 25 miles an hour. Otherwise, it's 35, 20 at the street, at the school, then it's 2.5 or 2 1/8 of a block. Then it's 20 miles an hour, starting at the park again and going all the way around to 25. They don't get that one little stretch. They don't understand it. And you can put all those very expensive, don't work, blinker, you're doing too fast. No, we need police presence because they are going way too fast.
Okay,
And
so,
being it's that populated on that sidewalk and people at their waterfront crossing over, trying to get over, you're gonna have, you really are, you're gonna have a situation where I'm surprised it hasn't happened.
okay, now what street is this again?
This is West Taps Highway East in itself,
Okay,
if we're talking about the road.
okay,
67th Court, if it's the parking.
okay,
And that has to get taken care of. I mean, I was outside, I counted 12 turnarounds because it was already filled on the street.
okay. So, we're getting close where we have to end because we have another meeting.
Okay, I'll be really
Five.
fast then.
Okay,
I also, I'm concerned about the crosswalk that is over by the park. Is there any way, and I've talked to people already here, over there and over here. Is there any way we could get those people that are, doing the, park tallies of how many's in the park and whatnot? Can we get a flagman out there or something? Because some people stop right in the middle of the road. And you're starting to go because you think it's A-okay, but it's insane. You know that. Going across that sidewalk. And some people stop right in the middle. They don't know if they want to go to the lake or they don't want to go to the park. And they're talking, having conversations in the middle of the road. And we're trying to get where we need to get. And it's crazy there.
okay.
Okay.
So we're down to 2 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay, but how am I gonna know if there's gonna be any
So-
discussion?
Can you stay? I can meet with you right after this
I
meeting.
can stay.
Okay, perfect. So we'll, and then, hopefully you can
Thank you.
kind of give us an update,
Yeah.
possibly council an update on your conversation
Sure.
in the near future. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Okay, anyone else okay, great. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.
So they're gonna use this room. I'll meet you right outside.
Yes.
We put those on bus caps, right?